we've started to change everybody's interpretations. And here we are, still wondering, what did he really mean? So for our consideration this morning, I've been asked to respond to this question very specifically. Would I tell some stories about how I have come to understand radical hospitality? And secondly, what then might I think it means? Thirdly, okay, hang on folks, how do I think the ELCA has done? I don't know how many people have been asked to stand up in front of a group and say, give an answer to that. And then finally, how do I think we might proceed a little bit differently and continue what we're doing? I have been privileged in my 80+ years to have lived in many settings, including Minnesota, Tanzania, and North Carolina. In my book, Education of a Stranger, I relate stories that have changed me, whether I was sitting under a Norway pine, or a Tanzanian baobab, or a North Carolina magnolia tree. In each place, I have been wonderfully taught. The stories are organized like a lexicon, like a dictionary. So on one side of the page, you have a Swahili word. In this case, it's elimu, which means, translated, education. And of course, there is a space in between for whoever is reading the story to perhaps get a little bit of a new interpretation. So the first story I'm going to tell you is in the section called Luga, which means language. The year is 1961. My husband Jerry and I have been selected by Columbia Teachers College to join a group called Teachers for East Africa, a program that sent 150 teachers to Tanganyika, Kenya, and Uganda during the years of Uhuru. There was freedom indeed from the British rule, but not from the educational legacy requiring all secondary school students to learn in their third language and to be examined in it. So with our two small boys, we were posted to Ilboro Lutheran Secondary School, located near Arusha, Tanganyika. Language, how it speaks of our particular identity, how it shapes our understanding of knowing and our belonging. We take it for granted when we're in the majority, but when we're not, the swirls of sounds around you can be unintelligible. And when the seasons of wet and dry speak of scorching heat and relentless rain, or the buzz of a mosquito strikes fear in your heart, these languages can be very inhospitable, radically so. So, Luga. Advent in Tanganyika, 1961. Hot, dry, dusty. Poinsettia bushes surrounded the gate by our house. Some were 8 feet tall, luxurious in this arid season. Desert show blossom sounded and looked biblical. The luxuriant red petals were full of themselves. It was the only connection to this season that I'd ever known. And never mind that our poinsettias in the States were pitiful in comparison. Yet I soon discovered another. Someone heard that I loved singing, probably because I joined the village church choir. But when I received an invitation to sing, it was not with the choir, but to participate in a church dedication of the slopes of Mount Meru. In some places, singing by yourself is called a solo, but here, hadn't heard one yet. This invitation to sing by myself had me swooped, scared, and nervous. My friend Rispa, a Maasai woman, told me it would be good to sing in Ma. We'd only been in Tanganyika 5 months. My faltering Swahili was pitiful, and my Ma, non-existent. Don't worry, she said, I'll teach you. So she began to sing these strange words, Sidai, Sidai, Asipa. At first, the sound was unintelligible, but gradually, as I let the tune enter my ears, I was astounded. I knew it, back in Minnesota, when Christmas morn is dawning, this same hymn we sang during Advent. The Sunday of the dedication dawned with the usual startlingly blue, clear sky, providing the setting for Mount Meru's soaring height in the background. And we drove towards the celebration, going up the slopes slowly. As we approached the church, it was not the construction that caught our attention. It was the sea of vibrantly clothed people. Tongas, patterned cotton shawls, and shukas, draped blankets everywhere. My warriors were draped in bold orange plaid. Women were wrapped in purple and magenta, all ready for a celebration. When we entered the church, it was already full. One side for men, the other side for women, a German tradition. The benches were crammed. The whitewashed cement walls were lined with people standing wherever a space could be found. Outside, people were shoving to get a place near a window, close enough to peek from the outside in. Once the service began, I felt some familiarity. The liturgy inherited from the Germans, I knew from our Ilboro church. But then the moment came. The pastor stood up and proceeded to explain my presence. He told everyone that there was this mama who was going to sing by herself. So would everyone just listen, please? My heart was hammering so loudly, couldn't they hear it? Necks craned around the window ledges, hundreds of eyes peering at me. With quavering voice, I began, "Si die, sipa." Eyes widened in astonishment, and then recognition, and then the smiles. Ah, the wonder of what that does to the face. And before I had finished the first phrase, I could hear, yes, and feel sound coming towards me. From the back of the men's side, a murmuring, faces alert, piercing eyes focused on this Mzungu, this white mama, singing alone, not possible. As I began the second phrase, Teni Katapo Kin, the sound was moving closer and closer, and I was engulfed by a warm musical wave, encircling me as the women gradually joined in. My voice took courage, and I sang with my whole heart amidst a glorious chorus. Sidai Sidai Sipa in Ma, Mahali ni Kuzuri, ni Kiswahili, continues to be the binding hymn in Tanzania. This tune of German heritage has been transformed into words that are grounded in this place. There will be a beautiful place where all of us will stand in the same boma, in the same circle of homes, where there is one tribe, one shepherd of us all. I continue to discover what it means to be lost and found in translation. So now here we're going to sing it. Okay? And I'll start out with the Ma. And wachungaji, tafadhali nisaidie Kiswahili. And then we'll sing in English, and I'll feed you the words. Sidai, sidai, sipa, teni kiatapo kin, en murate seremoni, anona shara, en murate seremoni, anona shara. I am teaching music at North Carolina Central University. With our 4 children, we have joined Abiding Savior Lutheran Church, a predominantly African-American congregation. Not long after we joined Abiding Savior Lutheran Church, Roland Hudson came up to me and he said, "Okay, Shoonie, when are you going to write your book?" And I remember my astonishment, and then maybe I pulled some laughter, as I replied, "When you co-author with me." I was completely unprepared for this question and the hidden meaning behind it. Durham's civil rights participation was very alive in this congregation. Roland taught at St. Augustine College in Raleigh. He had been an integral part of the civil rights movement, as had the majority of the church membership. They marched, they joined coalitions, they formed new alliances, and it wasn't over. About a year later, we were invited to an afternoon gathering of church members at the home of good friends, Gloria and Roland Cardwell. We were there to meet a visiting Lutheran from Ohio. He was one of a few black representatives on the Ohio Lutheran Synod Council. Initially, the conversation was focused around church and national politics. But then Arna looked at Jerry and me and he said, "Now tell me, why are you messing around with all these black folk?" Since we were the only white folk in the gathering, the question was for us only. Bill Small, a professor at the University of North Carolina, shot to his feet and said, "Hey, look here." But Gloria interrupted and said, "Hey, they can take care of themselves." So all eyes were on us. Jerry started, somewhat nervously at first, but his voice gained strength, and he said, "If we hadn't gone to Tanzania, we probably wouldn't be here. What we learned there about bright students with few options, about an educational system that denied them their heritage, was completely beyond our experience." And then we went to the island of Bukurewe, and I was at the feet of elders whose knowledge and memory would take years to assemble. And then there was the richness of music traditions and the wit and wisdom of folklore that captured our imagination. Since moving here, he continued, Chris and Carl are in middle school, and we've been appalled at the lack of information in their studies about Africa and the African-American experience. Western worldview prevails. But here at Abiding Savior, we as a family can participate in the mystery of belief and celebration about creation and creator. We can share a common faith even though we have experienced it differently. Our worldview here is changing us. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's a matter of heart and soul. When Jerry finished, there was quiet, some heads nodding. Gloria looked at Arna and she said, "Did you get all of that?" And he said, "I do believe I did." A year after the question Quinini was asked at Gloria's party, the two of us began to co-direct a teenage street theater group at our church. Using folktales, poetry, song, and dance from African and African-American sources, they spoke, sang, danced, and beat drums. For 7 years, Are You Listening provided an avenue of expression, a common ground for our teens who came from many different parts of the city. I would write the script in storytelling fashion, weaving in expressions of suffering, survival, hope, and love. Are you listening to the beat of our feet when it's right next to your door? Or can you only hear the beat that comes from a far-off shore? When we sang this song, we alerted our audience to the near and far of the message and the rich resources of the authors. Each year, I'd rewrite the script with new material. The power of the message, the heritage and eloquence of the words captured the hearts of those speaking and those listening. We received requests to bring Are You Listening to racism conferences, congregations, and assemblies, sending us all over the Southeast and even to the Midwest. New sounds, new voices, new beats. A folktale in Kwambunu Kende, A Monkey and a Lizard, embodied the core message all the way from Bukurewe, all the way from this remote island in Lake Victoria, where 3 distinct ethnic groups lived together in close proximity. Difference in image, in custom, in manner, in language, in possibility. And in the profound wisdom of folk literature, the question is asked, what keeps us apart? I first translated the folktale from Swahili to English, but then I adapted it into a beat for Are You Listening? Into rhyme that made the mime work well. There was a beat. Our son Carl was the black-faced monkey, and his black buddy Warwick was the white-faced lizard. It took a while for the audience to get it. So, in front of you, you've got a copy. Follow along with me as I read it. I have a little story that I think you will like, about a monkey who is black and a lizard who is white. In Cleveland, the monkey was walking one day when he met a Candy, the lizard. So he stopped to say, "Listen, my friend, come to my house and eat. I promise I'll fix you a very special treat." With delight, the lizard said, "When will this be?" And promptly the monkey said, "Tomorrow I'm free." The monkey hurried home to tell his wife, because they'd never fed a lizard in their entire life. The monkey said, "Lizards like intestines of a fish." His wife said, "That's a tasty dish." The monkey said, "I'm off to see our chief, for I'm sure he'll agree to make our friend the lizard part of our family." When the lizard arrived the next day to dine, everything was prepared especially fine. The chair, the table, everything was set. If only the chief's rules could be easily met. The monkey said, "Friend, I'm sure you'll agree, good friends are just part of one big family." My chief said, "You can become one of us if you eat in a chair without too much fuss." So the lizard tried, and he tried, and he tried some more, but he always landed on the floor. And sadly, the lizard went home. Later that week, the monkey was walking one day, and he met the lizard, who stopped to say, "Listen, my friend, come to my house and eat. I promise I'll fix you a very special treat." With delight, the monkey said, "When will this be?" And in Kenya, the lizard said, "Tomorrow I'm free." The lizard hurried home to tell his wife, because they never fed a monkey in their entire life. The lizard said, "Monkeys think corn is good food." And his wife said, "If I told you what I think, you'd say that I'm rude." The lizard said, "I'm off to see our chief, for I'm sure he'll agree to make our friend the monkey part of our family." When the monkey arrived the next day to dine, the chair, the table, everything was set. If only the chief's rules could easily be met. The monkey sat happily ready to eat, the corn prepared as a special treat. The lizard said, "Friend, I'm sure you'll agree, good friends are just part of one big family. My chief says you can become one of us. Just make your face white, like mine, without too much fuss." So the monkey washed, and he scrubbed his face sore. But alas, he was just as black as before. Now, my friend, it's obvious to see that God's been very busy creating you and me. The question is, do we belong to one big family? Are You Listening? Ushered us into church spaces where presumably we could look at this question in new ways. Our small congregation in Durham, North Carolina, has places of leadership emerging as well. In the late 1970s, Gloria became the first African-American woman to sit on the church council of the American Lutheran Church. And within a few years, Sheila Small, Rosa and Bill's daughter, was elected to the Multicultural Youth Council, a new organization within the National Luther League. We were so proud. It was newsworthy. Pictures of Sheila appeared in the Minneapolis Tribune as well as the Durham Herald. But within a few weeks, anonymous letters started appearing in the Smalls mailbox. Word after word, letter after letter. Stay with your own kind. You don't belong here. Why? We cried. Why would anyone do such a thing? Under closer scrutiny, the Minneapolis postmark screamed, "We're white here. We have our heritage. We have ours. You have yours. Don't come here." That was in the 70s. In 2012, I attended a local gathering of Lutheran church people in North Minneapolis. It's a relatively new word, local. It acknowledges our interdependence in this 21st century. A global world, no matter where we call home. Global and local have less and less space between them. Pointing, why? Now, this question comes to us from another direction. We are not the stranger, the Mgeni, who is crossing over into someone else's space. Now the Mgeni is coming nearer and nearer into all of our spaces. Our neighborhoods, our hospitals, our schools, our workplaces, and sometimes even our churches. "We send significant dollars to Madagascar," said one local participant, "but we're not ready to engage our new neighbors into our church life." Why? The third story is titled Mzungu, White Person. Comes from Tanzania. The year is 2000. I had returned to Tanzania in 1996 as an ELCA missionary to facilitate the fledgling organization Mwangaza Education for Partnership, linking initially 5 dioceses of the ELCT and their 5 companion synods of the ELCA. Within 4 years, 20 ELCT and ELCA companion synods joined our program to participate in 3 educational offerings. Seminars for secondary school teachers focusing on English language, science, and math methodologies. An intergenerational Binti Mama or mother-daughter program taught in Swahili, addressing HIV/AIDS, women's health, entrepreneurial skills, and harassment. And our community health program offering congregations, men and women, training in waterborne diseases, harassment, conflict management at home, school, and at work. Wazungu, white folk. There is nothing new about naming groups of people. The human need to blame, denigrate, and violate for group or self-gain is ageless. It's a process that infiltrates institutions and mindsets, thereby rationalizing and legalizing behaviors that not only give permission to exclude others, but to limit their access to a full life. To determine another's worth is to take on God power. Wazungu is the plural of Mzungu. It's the collective word for white folk, those for whom privilege, entitlement, and choice are assumed. It's the collective word for those who have used their power to name others' worth. This word turns the in-between space inside out, for we are the ones being translated by those with whom we have chosen to engage. In many places, here and abroad, our collective identity precedes us, with assumptions that we are missionaries, mercenaries, or misfits. Furthermore, our collective reputation names us as arrogant, ignorant, domineering, condescending, and greedy, causing some to say, "Go home," or "Give me your money," and leave. Whether we are crackers, gringos, or Wazungu, we are now being named out loud with increasing volume and ferocity. For many well-intentioned Wageni, there is little understanding of how we are perceived because for many of us, as white majority, the attendant power to name others has been a lifelong given. Not only have we written the relational script, we have typecast the players. Furthermore, we're the directors. It can be a crash course in identity stereotyping when we find ourselves in this negative collective space. Emotions of fear, anger, and indignation can be our primary responses. Is it possible to rewrite the script together? A story about a Good Samaritan. One evening, a Mwangaza volunteer teacher was heading to the Kilimanjaro airport with our staff driver to await his wife's arrival on the 8 p.m. flight from Amsterdam. They left my home in plenty of time, early evening when it was still light. About 9 p.m., I was surprised by a hoodie at my door. Puzzled, as it was too soon for Jim and his wife to return, I hurried to answer. The gentleman greeted me quickly and he said, "There's been an accident with your Mwangaza car at the junction of the Oboro Road and the Moshi-Nairobi Highway." The word accident all but brought me to my knees. "Is anyone hurt? Jim, Alan?" He hastened to tell me that somehow the car had landed in a cement culvert to avoid hitting a small child who had darted into the main road. But where are they? Where is Jim? Where is Alan? "I don't know about Jim. I didn't see him, but Alan is there, and it would be good if you came with me. I have a car." As we made our way down the road, my head was in turmoil, to say nothing of my heart. What happened? Why hadn't I been notified earlier? The 5-minute drive felt like hours. As we neared the intersection, we could see crowds of people gathered around the culvert that still held our Mwangaza car in its grip. Alan stood to the side as several men valiantly tried to leverage our Land Rover up and out, a challenge that for 2 hours continued to foil all attempts. Running to his side, I said again, "How are you? Is anyone hurt?" And then he told me that since the accident, he had had to stay by the car because of the hordes of people swarming around it. And then a safari car had stopped and asked if they could assist, and we told them that Jim's wife was soon arriving. He said, so the car headed for the airport, took Jim along with them, and we were so grateful, this good Samaritan driver taking care of our teacher from the States. The next morning, as Jim and his wife and I prepared to attend the village church service, I suggested that a monetary gift for our Good Samaritan might be appropriate. After church, we all stood for some time recounting the events with laughter and marveling at this amazingly shared saga. Later that week, I was surprised to see our Good Samaritan at my doorstep. Delighted to see him again, we sat on the veranda as he began to recount his personal story. I've been studying at Macamira Seminary